Good day, welcome to the channel. This is some dude coding. Today we are going to be doing React. So on React we want to do this basic program that has 3 buttons and then a counter and then a heading, right? So this project it's just a simple project that I did when I was still learning React. So when you click on the increase button, you can see that the counter is being incremented by 1, and then when you press decrease, it's being decremented by 1, and also accept the negative side. And then anywhere you are with the count, you can just click on the reset button and then it will go back to 0. So this is what we are going to be working on today. Let's get started. So I'm going to be using code sandbox just to make things simpler. Yeah, code sandbox is a working environment that is on the cloud, so you can just go to code sandbox and then create a React app. So let's go ahead and create a new sandbox, a React sandbox. So initially this is what you're going to see after creating your project, right? Okay, let me fix this thing. Yeah, so I've fixed the error that I was getting here. If you get the same error too, you might need to copy this link here and paste it on a new tab, and then wait it to load, and then it will display this template here, and then you just come back to this page and then you refresh it, and then you should be good. So now for our project that we are doing, so remember we want to increase, decrease and reset the counter, and also display the counter value, and then we want to style it a little bit. So by default, this is what you have. This is your source folder, and then this is your public folder that connects you to the browser. So this is your app. Mostly you will build your app inside ReactJS. So this is your style sheet. This is where most of our styling will be, and then this is packages that we use for the project. So we won't be installing any packages. We'll just be using the built-in JSX syntax. So let's go ahead and start creating our project. So we are going to use state. We are going to use state. We are going to use state to store the current state of the counter. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and create a variable and a function to update the count. So we are going to be storing the state inside count, and then when we want to update the state, we're going to call this function. So let's go ahead and start with our said, now it's a regular is a regular counter heading for our looks, and then under that let's have another h1. Note that I'm using h1 to display the count value. So the count value, I can hard code it like 0, there is it, and then let's go ahead and create our buttons. So we would want to display our buttons in one row. So there are many ways you can do that, but I prefer to use this simple one. So we are going to have our first button, right? Our first button here, on the left it's going to be decrease, right? Decrease. Let's go ahead and copy that to multiple lines. Sorry about that. Let's go ahead and let's just change this. It's a reset button. It's a reset, and then it's an increase button. Okay. This has to go in here. They are unable to pass. It's JSON, so I made a mistake the time I opened this page. I edited that, but that's fine. Just hit Control save. It should align your project. So now we have these buttons, we have this counter, and then we have this. So I don't know if you want me to style it now, or you just want to see the functionality, but let me go ahead and just add some margin on these buttons. So I'm not going to give them class name since it's just those buttons, and then here we want to give them margin on margin on the left and right side, right? So let's just do it like that. Let me fix this reset. Yeah, Control save. Yeah, reset, increase, and then decrease. Now we don't want to display count as hard coded here. We want to take it from the state. So our state variable is count. So now we are going to call count here. But in order to access this count variable, this is JavaScript, and then this is JSX. So you see, when I try to write count, it displays it on the down. So now I need to tell React that I'm going back to JavaScript to take the count variable. So now I need to input it inside curly braces. As you can see, now it is displaying 0, and it has removed the yellow underline on the count variable. Now we are displaying the state that we stored here. So for example, if I remove, there's nothing. If I put 5, it will display 5. But that's not how we want to display it. We want, when we click on any of these buttons, to either decrease, increase, or reset the count to 0, right? So let's go ahead and create a new state. We will call the state increase, right? So we'll call the state increase, when we increase count, right? Okay, just prefer camel case. So we want to increase count, right? Increase count is going to be no, not actually, no, I don't have to take that long way, sorry about that. Now what we want to do, we want to, when we click this button, we want something to happen to decrease the count. If it's 0, it must go to the negative side, and then if it is increase, it must go to the positive side. If it's any value here, when we click reset, we want to set the count to 0 again. So now a button takes an on click, event, right? So you say what should happen when you click the button, right? So we want to set count to 3, for example. Sorry about that. This should be curly braces. We want to tell React that we are going back to JavaScript so that we can call this function here. Now we want to set count to 3, but we're getting an error here. So it says too many renders, right? So what is actually happening here? When React renders this component here, right? When it reaches this on click, it calls this function set count to 3, and every time when the state changes on React, the component is re-rendered. So it tries to render, call this function, change the state. Now the state is changed, it wants to render again. So now we get that infinite loop. In order to take care of that, we must call another function before we can call this function. So I like to use arrow function. So you can see now that is taken care of. This is a function that returns this function, right? When I click this, I run this function that returns this function, right? That's what is happening now. Now when React renders, it renders, and then when it reaches on click, it calls this function that just return this function, right? But it's not on an on click event. Now it just calls this function and stores it somewhere in the React DOM, and then when I click it increase, it changes the count to 3, but nothing happens because I hard coded that 3 here. But what we can do so that it doesn't just render 3 only, so what we can do, we can call the count variable and add 1 to it, right? So every time when this button is clicked, it takes the current count value and adds 1 to it. When I click, it calls this function, and then this function calls this one, and then this function takes the value of count that is stored in the state, right? Not the initial state, but the state that is stored in React, and then it adds 1 to it. Now we have this full functional button. Now we can see I can click it as many times as I want. It won't give me an error or anything. So now let's go to decrease, right? So we'll give it an on click, handler. We tell the React that we want to go back to JavaScript. So here we'll first call that arrow function, that arrow empty arrow function, and then we call set count. And then what do we want to do here? Every time when we click on this button, we want to take count value and minus 1 from it, right? Now, so this is what we have now. So it's giving me none because that time I clicked there was nothing here, so it was undefined. So now JavaScript cannot add to an undefined value, so now it's going to give me an error, undefined again. Let's try to save this so that we can re-render it. Okay, let's refresh it. Okay, now we are back using the state, and there's a copy of the state in the React DOM. So now every time when I click here, React updates the state that is in the React DOM, right? So now I can go to 6 and can decrease the count. Then we are left with reset. Now on reset, we actually do the same thing. On click, what do we want to do when the button is cleaned? First things first, we tell React that we want to go back to JavaScript and call this arrow function that returns set count function. And when we have reset that set count function, we want it to go back to 0, right? You might be wondering, wouldn't it work if you leave it like this? So now this is an empty string or empty value. It's undefined, right? It's undefined. So when you click here, it will just remove this count from the DOM because it's undefined, so there's nothing to display. But what happens when you press increase or decrease, it displays none. Why it displays none? Because count is set to undefined, and then you want to add 1 to undefined. That's not possible in JavaScript. So you can't add anything to an undefined variable or to undefined value. So now let's just put 0 there, and then let's refresh. Let's see. Okay, this is setting a count to 0. Set the count to 0. I increase, I decrease, I decrease further, I reset it, I increase further, I reset it, I increase, I decrease. Sorry. So now our program is working successfully. So now this is the logic, and then yeah. So but there is another way which you can do this. You can define your function outside const. Let's say increase. Let's say 1 2 const is equals to an arrow function that increases the count value. So you can just take that, paste it here, and then we are done. So now you may be wondering, do I still have to call the arrow function here? Not really. Do not need to. Because now we've already created that arrow function outside here. You can see here is it. Here is it. What it does, it sends count to add. So now it's working fine. So anyway you do it, it's just going to work. You can do these too, but I'm not going to do that here on the video. Just going to leave it like this, right? So now let's go to styling. Let's give it just nice small styling. So let's give this one a class name of, let's say, it's counter actually. It's a counter. Go to CSS. It's a counter. So you can start by font size. Let's say 2 rem. Font size 2 rem. Not working 3 rem. It's working 4. How about 5? Okay, I think that's enough. So we have that heading, we have our count here, and then let's style our buttons. So I can give them like a padding of 3 pixels, 5 pixels, and then I think that's still small, or let's say okay, let's color them text inside the button. So let's color the text to white, and then we want a background color of just taking the color from another screen. So the color is sorry about that. Okay, I've got that. So the background color, and then we have the border, and then you can just set it to none, no border, and then you can have border radius, we can have like 5 pixels, and then let's come back here, let's give it 10. Okay, let's give it 5. Okay, let's give it a font size of like 16 pixels. Now buttons look a little bigger, so I can still go to 18 pixels. Okay, let's add more, 20 here, and then let's say 10 on the outside. So now we have this nice beautiful buttons, and then we can also, okay, this one needs to be yellow. What is the syntax? and then I think something like this first child, then there is okay. Just going to give it a class name of yellow. Let me go ahead and take the color yellow here. Okay, this is background color of yellow. Let's go and give it a class name, right? Class name of yellow. So now our button is yellow, a bit different than others, right? We can do hover and on click and then active click, yeah, but I'm not going to do that. It's styling, so I wanted to mainly focus on let's give it like I think this one is fine. Yeah, much better now. Yeah, so yeah, I wanted to focus on the functionality mostly. So now that we are done with it, thank you for watching the video. It's pretty much long. Yeah.